Okay, so what we're talking about today, I need to hear it as much as I need to share it with you. This is the hard stuff. This is Dr. Elisa was going to be on with us today. And the irony, like if you guys saw how hard it was for us to fit self-care in with all of the things that me and Dr. Elisa are doing, we were laughing at just the idea of how hard it was to schedule a self-care training with how hard self-care is. So I figured since she had something come up, the pivot that naturally seemed like it was time for was talking about the exchange wheel. And I'm going to share the concept with you, and then I'm going to get into the meat of it. So everybody, by the time you're watching this, you should have the guide for the exchange wheel. Ideally, when you're listening to this, you've got the guide printed out. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a minute to have the guide printed out. I am a big fan of pen to paper. And what I want you to keep in mind is the more you participate in these trainings, the more you're going to get out of them. Whether you're a club member or a student of the Staffless Practice Academy, I want you to get a ton out of your experience with me. So 2 things for you to do today to get that experience like 100%, not at 90%. 1, print out the guide that I sent out to all of you guys. I think I have it on my desktop to drop. If anybody has it, oh wait, I have it right here. I'm going to go ahead and drop it. So print out this guide. And then the second thing I want you to do is see the link in the chat for the drive folder it's called, and I'm going to actually share that with you too, so I can just go through it with you really quickly. First, let's get into the exchange wheel and what it's all about. So what I see happen, and this is like 1 masterclass a month, we go into self-care and practice because we need it. I need it. You guys need it, right? So what we're talking about today is, you know, the feeling when you say yes, but you want to be saying no. It happens at least 5 times a day, right? You know the feeling when the person comes up to you and pats you on the ass and you're like, there's nothing that feels good about what just happened. It's like, what do I do? What do I say? I wish I had a one-liner for this moment. Nothing about that feels good. What do you do when your team member calls out 5 minutes before a shift starts? You've got people walking in the door, you've got someone on the phone, or maybe they even have the chutzpah, that's Yiddish for balls, to text you and say, I'm not coming in today, I don't feel good. And you literally have people walking in the door. What do you do in that moment, right? What do you do when you're about to see 40 people in the next 2 hours and you feel like you're going to throw up? What do you do? What do you do if you realize that you just got your period and you have nothing for it because you didn't plan for it? If you're in that boat, what do you do? So these are all about, I want to go into one more scenario. What do you do? And this happens all of the time. Actually, it doesn't happen to me. It happens to you guys because you haven't all learned the Staffless way yet. What do you do when you have a room full of people and Sally walks in and she's 5 minutes late? And she's got her in-laws and her 2-year-old who just took a dump in his diaper and she doesn't have wipes with her. And she wants you to adjust the poopy diaper kid or serve the poopy diaper kid. You're out of diapers. She needs to pay you for the last 3 visits. And by the way, can her in-laws get on the table too? And can they have a discount? And she asks these questions in front of everybody in the office. What do you do? And then you see that the phone's ringing. And while you're holding a baby because mom's on the table, the baby takes a dump too. What do you do in that moment? That's the exchange field. That's what we're about to go into. So what we need to protect as we become more successful in practice is we need to protect 3 things. Does anybody know what they are? What needs to be protected for you to feel like you are Gucci? Go for it.
Energy.
Energy is one of them. Ding, ding, ding. I got 2 more.
Well, time and money.
You got it. Did you cheat? Wait a second.
It's on your wheel.
So
But
not
energy was my
cool.
first one before I
Like,
looked
you're
down.
really smart. So guys, it's all about protecting time, energy, and money. And as you're setting all of these systems up, whether you're setting up your texting templates or you're figuring out who your perfect practice member is or whatever it is, you're thinking, how can I protect my time, my energy, and my money? Because those are the three ways that energy goes in and energy goes out. Consumption goes in and consumption goes out. Consumption is given and consumption is taken, right? Time, energy, money. Okay. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the process of planning for protecting time, energy, money. Cool. Okay. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to talk about boundaries. Boundaries is a good one. And we're all like, what's the boundary? Here's the thing about boundaries. We all feel our boundaries or identify our boundaries in different ways. It's a tricky thing to teach about because of how differently we all experience. We usually experience boundaries when they get crossed. We could experience boundaries as we're creating them or seeing a need to create them. But again, usually we see the need because a boundary gets crossed. Everybody has a different physical experience, and usually there's a physical experience when a boundary gets crossed. Can anybody think of a moment recently when a boundary was crossed and what you experienced in your body that you'd be willing to share?
I have a patient who I think likes me, and during the appointment, he was telling me, like, I stalk your YouTube channel, like I stalk everything about you, pretty much. And I just stood there, like, what do I tell this person? And it was really natural for me to just like say his name for some reason. Like that's what I was called to do. So I was like, Joshua. And then he knew, like he just crossed it.
So what you did in response was you said his name, like you stated his name, and he felt that he crossed it. What did you feel in your body when it was crossed?
Violated.
What was the physical feeling?
Entropy, disorder, disorganization. It's like I didn't feel like I was inside of me anymore, in a sense. Like it was just too much energy was seeping out.
Disconnected?
Yeah.
And what's the physical sensation of a disconnection for you?
Physical state of disconnection for me.
Yeah, what does it feel like? Like a 4-year-old says, hey, doc, what's it feel like for you to feel disconnected? What words would you use to describe that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. It's like, it's like a state. It's a feeling.
Do you guys see how hard this is? It's so hard to identify what we feel in the body, on the physical plane when a boundary is crossed. George, for me, when my boundary is crossed, I leave my body, like what you're saying, and I feel dizzy. I feel lightheaded. I feel like I can't quite find my space. I feel like a hot flash for those of us who are going through this really fun time, right? I feel maybe a flash of heat in my face. These are the physical experiences. So my friend, the next time somebody crosses your boundary, because it will happen regularly because we're serving the general public, right? And people who you may think that people would never think of doing the shit that they do, but they do it because they don't know any better, right? They're not doing it to be malicious. I want you to identify what you feel in your body, because the clearer the connection of what you feel in your body, the quicker your response will be. I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. I was sharing with you guys, I think it was in this group last week, I used to have a patient that, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
No problem.
Really appreciate it. I used to have a patient who would walk up to me and pat me on the ass. And I was in my 30s and I was like, okay, that feels really, I couldn't even identify that it felt violating. I started to sweat. I would want to cry. I would want to hide. And you know what I would do? I would go eat something. because that's my go-to. That's the tape that plays, right? So my go-to was to go find something to eat because I'm uncomfortable in the moment. But because I didn't have the skills developed to say, this is my boundary being crossed right now. And then to have a one-liner, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me, right? I also have a practice member, she's sweet as pie. Like, I've been taking care of her for 20 years. She always feels like she has to hug me. I want to be able to initiate the hugs that I experience when I'm serving people, because my energy needs to be protected because I'm giving so much, right? So I've learned to say to this person, I used to just hug her and say, Jodi, just hold your breath and don't just hug her, just give her a hug. She's lonely. But it's not my job to hug people. It's my job to give them a great adjustment. You guys get that, right? Like, it's not my job to let this guy pat me on the ass. It's my job to give him a great adjustment to the best of my ability. That's what I took an oath to do, right? So if something is crossing my boundary, whether it's time, energy, or money, in both of those examples, it would be energy. There was an energetic exchange that was happening that I was not comfortable with. If it's a time thing, it's people showing up late and saying, you know what? I really love you and I love caring for you, but you got to get on board with my schedule, sister, because I got stuff, right? This isn't so much in my adjusting room because my adjusting room is kind of like a party and people can come and go as they please. It's more about like my coaching, my consulting. Every minute counts because I'm charging $1,000 an hour. So if you show up 20 minutes late, that's $200 if we have an hour-long call. And I have to charge you for that $200, right? So it's establishing the boundary. It's feeling the boundary crossed. What's the physical experience and getting really familiar. Do you have a different experience when your physical boundaries are crossed as opposed to when your time boundaries or your money boundaries are crossed, or is it all the same thing? I can tell you right now, if you come from a background of being abused, especially sexual abuse, this is going to be a really hard one for you. I had to study for many years to learn how to manage my boundaries, and I'm still figuring it out. So get familiar with your boundaries. And once you're familiar with them, like with George, he feels the experience of leaving his body, or maybe he feels tingly. And then he takes time when that boundary is not being crossed to establish a policy for it. So in that moment, what was the boundary that was being crossed, George?
It's like you walk into my space and you're flirting with me. Like, seriously? So that was my experience.
So it was like feeling violated.
It's like who are you to even think you can just walk in and do that?
Right. It's an inappropriateness with sexuality.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really important. So
Professional.
then professional, personal boundary, right? Yeah. So then what is the policy for you to feel good in that boxing ring? What does your policy need to be around your time, energy, money being respected when it comes to sexual interaction, sexual energy being thrown around? What's the policy?
The policy is to focus on delivering a service to that individual and like keep the energy flowing in that space. It's got to be about it, and there is no room for like another energy to slip into that. It's like, for me, I'm a chiropractor. Like, we're going to talk about chiropractic. I'm not going to talk about the baseball game. I'm not going to talk about anything else. Like, there's no room for you to flirt with me in a sense. Like, we're going to focus on what I do.
So the policy is 100% commitment to the task at hand.
Yeah.
That's the policy. So then George would go and create his practice policies. And one of the policies would be 100% dedicated attention to the task at hand. Which in George, go ahead, sorry.
No, that's it.
Yeah, which in George's case, locate, analyze, correct, subluxation. right? In somebody else's case, who's a physical therapist or an herbologist, you figure out what is the policy that needs to go on the wall. And we're going to go to the go on the wall thing in a minute, and I'm going to explain why that's important. So you've got your boundaries, you've got your policies that protect your boundaries. Okay, this is where it gets juicy. You've got your consequences if those boundaries are not respected, if those policies are not honored. And a consequence in that moment, George, would be, you know what, John, I've got my policies written right on the wall. You see them right there. You actually signed a statement when you joined our practice that you would honor our practice policies. Can we just go back to policy number 2 for a second and just, can we just identify for a second that we just crossed it? And it doesn't feel good to me. And I want this to feel really good because I want to give you great care. The policy's on the wall, John. Okay, so that's the consequence. Another consequence example would be Sally walks in 10 minutes late. She's got her in-laws with her. She's got her 2-year-old, the poopy diaper, the can I have a discount, the da 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 da, right? The consequence in that moment is, I like the idea of one-liners. The consequence in that moment would be, girl, are you kidding me? This is me though, because this is how I talk to my patients. Are you kidding? Right now, you really want to do this right now? Can you please call me when I get home tonight at 7 p.m. and we'll talk about it then? That would be my one-liner for Sally. I would say no, but I would say no in a jovial, Jodi kind of way. And I plan for the jovial kind of way when I'm sitting at my desk, I'm cerebral, I'm connected to my heart, I'm not reacting, I'm planning. There's a big difference. If you take the time to plan for this stuff, you guys, you will not react. You'll have a consequence to it. The consequence to my policy being disrespected during my office hours, it's right there on the wall. It's also really important that you have an appreciation for each policy. So let's say Sally comes in next time and yeah, she's 10 minutes late, but she says to you, I'm really sorry that I'm running late and I get it if I have to wait. There's a reason to appreciate something there. Or let's say that John came back to George and George and John are in another consult and John says, hey, George, I identify that it was my bad. I was in the wrong. There's an appreciation there that needs to happen. And it could just be a simple thank you. You get it, you guys? So if we're talking, this is such big stuff. If we're talking about time, energy, money, that picture looks off to me. Here, time, energy, money. Each have a boundary, a policy, an appreciation, and a consequence. Okay? What I want you to do is I want you to go through this exercise. Why is that off? I'm going to fix that. That will bother me. And what will happen is you're just gonna fill out the questions and then you're gonna, for time, here's the other thing I wanted to say. Friends and family, team members, and practice members each need to be considered for time, energy, money boundaries, time, energy, money policies, time, energy, money consequences, time, energy, money appreciations. If your team member has a habit of showing up 10 minutes late over and over and over, and then all of a sudden they start showing up 10 minutes early because you brought to light the policy of the practice, you have to appreciate them for it. And the appreciation could be a bonus at the end of the week. The appreciation is you could do something cute, like buy them a new Apple Watch and say, hey, I really appreciate you respecting time in my world. Here's to me respecting time in yours. Here's a new Apple Watch. Or something fun to put joy in the center of it. The same is true for your family members. Time, if my brother is colorful to say the least. He moves through the world extremely differently. And I always say, you will never forget a dinnerman when you've met one. If you meet any of my family members in person, you will never forget any of us, because we just move through the world differently. We walk up to strangers, we hug them, we tell them how cute they are, we grab their babies and hold them on our hips. We just do things that most people, there's no filter in any dinnerman, right? So my brother can push the edge of the envelope with me, with my kids, with my other family members, in public. And he's funny as all hell, you guys, but boy, oh boy, does he push the envelope. I may have appreciations and consequences for him, but he'll tell me, I'm not listening to you. So then, and that will happen. Then we decide, is this somebody that, is it worth it to me? Is this somebody who I want to continue to invest my time, energy, money in? And if the answer is yes, you know that you've gone into a sacred contract with that person. If the answer is no, you've got to pivot and course correct. Okay. I do want to talk about team for a minute with this. Any questions before we go into team? Oh, Meg, I'm rubbing your belly. Yeah, heat in face, racing heart, belly anxious. Whoa, that whole feeling, it's just nasty. Okay. Inside of Staffless Practice Academy, we have a course called Team of One. And it's actually book number 5, Coming from My Heart. And in Team of One, sometimes we get a new client in the academy and they're like, I have a team of 8 people and they all hate me. I have cameras in my waiting room because I know they're stealing from me. They show up late, they leave early, they expect to get bonus when they don't deserve it. You guys, I hear it all the time, okay? And the first thing that we do in that moment is what's called the pivot. And the pivot is the brakes go on, and we say, what do we want for this practice? We want to be seeing 200 people a week. We want to be making 250K a year. We want to be serving from a place of compassion and kindness and integrity. We want to dot our I's and cross our T's on billing. These are all of the things that we want for the practice. This is the first part of the pivot. The second part of the pivot is, who do I currently have on my team who would be really good at helping me get all of these things done? And I identify who's already on the team, what pieces of that puzzle do they need to be a part of? Then the third thing is, we have a knee-to-knee, heart-to-heart meeting with each team member who is on that list. And we say, we got to pivot here. This is what I want for the practice. This is what the practice is currently experiencing. This is my time, energy, money demands. This is my time, energy, money appreciations. These are my time, energy, money policies. Are you on board or are you not? Usually they say no. Usually they will use this as the opportunity to run. If they don't and they say yes, they sign a new agreement with you and they are agreeing to the new set of policies, boundaries, appreciations, and consequences. And it might look like a team meeting. You know, I just had a meeting with my executive assistant, Krista, and I said, we need to start meeting every morning. I want to talk to you every morning. I just want to have a 5-minute huddle and hear your game plan for the day. That was a mini pivot. And she was like, all right, cool, let's do it. If she said to me, Jodi, I really don't want to do that, I'd probably say there needs to be a consequence to this boundary being crossed right now. Now, you guys don't want to become like that guy who's like, I'm practicing my boundaries and like wear the like boundaries with a line through it shirt. Like, chill out a little bit with it. Take a deep breath with it. Hold on to it lightly. Nail it into the studs in the wall, but hold on to it lightly. Okay, and practice and practice and practice. Practice makes perfect and perfect makes practice. Okay, so that's time, energy, money exchange. I'm actually, you know, I'm going to drop a new play sheet because there's like, let me just show you what I'm seeing, you guys, because this will make me crazy. So of course, I have to point it out to you. You see how the word money is like coming off of this sheet? I'll fix it and I'll replace it because now it will bother you too. And this sheet will also be in the drive. I wanted to show that to you too. So if we go into the chat, And let's go into the drive folder. So in the drive folder, it's called the Joy-Filled Practice Closet. I'm just starting to drop things in here that I want you guys to play with. And we're going to add to it every week. So just stay connected to it. I just added the wheel here. I've got so much to add to this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Does anybody have questions, or do you want to go through a scenario or an example? Do you want to be put on the spot? Anything at all? Hi, Lisa.
I,
Okay.
Two
Yeah.
Lisas. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Lisa.
I do. For me, I have a very hard time establishing boundaries in my personal life and my relationships with family, in like my partner. And I realized with my staff, like I've become like I've always wanted to be that boss that I never had, that I never felt appreciated. So I always wanted to be someone who they could feel like they could come to, and like we could feel like work as a team. But I feel like now I have come to, like, it is more like now they tell me what they're doing instead of
Dr. Kent, can we jump in for a minute and role play? So I want to share with you what we do. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that. And me and Dr. Kent are going to role play for a minute what we call the 5 freedoms training. It takes 5 minutes. We do this every week. Actually, at this point, me and Dr. Kent do this twice a month. Dr. Kent is one of the coaches on my team. He helps me coach you guys. So would it be helpful to see how we do this? Okay. So 5 freedoms, we go through gratitude, appreciation, acknowledgements, and then what I'm planning, what I've done last week and what I'm planning this week. You ready? Dr. Kent, I'm really grateful that I've got somebody like you on my team, because you can drop everything and go to Jamaica, and you living that kind of life gives me permission to live that life too. And I'm really grateful for that. I really appreciate the fact that you gave me enough of a heads up to know that you're going to Jamaica and to just have time to celebrate you. Is there anything I need to apologize for?
No.
All right, cool. So last week, what I committed to doing in relation to your job is I committed to getting our triage script. This is legit, you guys. This is really what we're doing. I committed to getting our triage script down pat and sharing it with you and Dr. Shona. And this week, what I commit to doing is just being super prepared for the next time the 3 of us meet. My KPI for the week for my company is 1 new client a month. And I'm sorry, 1 new client a week. And I'm doing pretty good with it. I'm at about 2 on average. So I'm nailing it. Do you want to go, Dr. Kent, and show how you do this?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll express gratitude just for the way you've set up our staff, the staff side of Staffless, to really embody these values that we're expressing in the curriculum, that there is that shared communication, that open communication, and that continued effort towards clarity, and that openness for us to make mistakes and just talk about it. So I really, really appreciate that. An example of that was I had a scheduled mix-up and missed a team meeting, and there wasn't this lingering discontent. There was, hey, let's talk about it, and we worked through it. And just having that feels really good for me. My job this coming week is to be on vacation and just soak it all up. My KPI is going into the ocean 3 times per day. I think I'm going to do pretty good about that. And my goal getting back is to really fine tune my organization systems and get back to you on a few things that I've switched. so that we can be really clear on making sure our students are supported as they're transitioning into our program. Is there anything I need to apologize for?
No, I feel like we cleaned up you not coming to the team meeting, and I understand why you weren't there, and I'm excited for you to be at the next one. So thanks for that. Now, you guys, that took 5 minutes, and we went over, you hurt me when you said this, if that needed to be said. And sometimes it needs to be said. And this, if Ken crosses a boundary of mine, and I know that it's not my stuff, I know that it was really the action that Ken did and the way that it didn't or did resonate with the policies of our company. He knows, and I know, that we've got a 5 freedoms training, what we just did, scheduled for next week. That's when we'll go over it. It doesn't need to be reactive. Sometimes what will happen, because you guys, now I'm with a team of 9 people. I've never had a team in my life, right? So now if I cross a boundary or Kent crosses a boundary, he can say to me, Jodi, I need a 5 freedoms training. No problem, you got it. Sometimes when I say, is there anything I need to apologize for? Like, it's happened where I get sideswiped and I'm like, I really didn't recognize that hurt your feelings. And if we hadn't had the opportunity to say, is there anything I need to apologize for? It would have lingered and lingered. Then it would have made stuff sour, and that sourness would have been affected on my patient load. You guys, it filters into everything. I'm going to say one more thing, and then Lisa, this is all in the academy. So it's called 5 freedoms training inside of the team of 1 course. Okay. And it's gratitude, appreciation, acknowledgement, which is there anything I need to apologize for? What I committed to doing last week in light of your job, and what I'm committed to doing this coming week in light of your job. That's 5. And then you check in with your team member on the KPI for the week. The KPI is the key performance indicator. It's the number that's measurable. One of my coaching clients has so much going on in her world, and she can't handle looking at videos and spreadsheets and all of the things. So the only thing we coach on from week to week is her KPI for the upcoming week. She gives me one thing that we can measure, because that's what she has the bandwidth for. Okay. Thanks so much for that, Ken. I can tell you that I mean, I've had people working at my desk over the years in my chiropractic office, and I never did anything like this. And like, it just got so dramatic, you guys, quite frankly, it was ridiculous. And what would happen is my boundaries were all over the place, and like, yuck, nobody wants to work in that environment. People want to come to work to work. Yeah, they want to connect with people, but they want to show up and they want to do a really good job, and then they want to shut the door and they want to leave work at work. And quite frankly, I feel like that's what they have a right to do. If Cassie takes 4 days off, I don't want her thinking about Staffless Practice. I want her thinking about her beautiful husband and her lovely kids. I used to want them thinking about my practice because I thought everybody needed to be drinking the Kool-Aid. But quite frankly, they're not going to want, they're thinking about their own Kool-Aid, you guys, and they should be thinking about their own Kool-Aid when they're not on your clock, in my opinion. Unless they're part owner in the company, then part of their Kool-Aid is your Kool-Aid. Questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, anything at all?
I want to express how cool this stuff is, not just from a practice standpoint, but a life standpoint. A chiropractic mentor of mine said the cool thing about being a chiropractor, fill in the blank with anyone who's a wellness practitioner, is that you get to work on your practice and work on yourself at the same time. And I had an experience where I did 5 freedoms with a roommate that I was having some difficulties with. And yeah, it was a good attempt. It didn't solve the issues, but at least we had a good structure to talk about it. But for those of us who are in the scale world, a little deeper into our content, there's a course on the importance of certainty. And that's just really a deep dive to the truth that as we find clarity around what our boundaries are and develop those within ourselves, that changes everything, the external environment, if and when those things ever do come up. And it's a chance to really, yeah, work with your kids and your family. And so I'm sure as we're talking about this, there's something most of us where they have an experience or a potential thing where they say, oh, I could have some more clarity around that potential boundary or that policy. And the cool thing is that as you develop that in yourself, it really changes things in your practice and everywhere else. So thanks for sharing all this
Think
stuff,
about
Jodi. It's
totally.
good stuff.
You guys think about if your reevaluations with your patients were 5 freedoms. I'm really grateful that you chose my practice, and I appreciate you showing up on time. I appreciate you being committed to your health. Is there anything I haven't done that I promised you I would do? They get the opportunity to tell you this has not worked for me. Here, the hardest thing about 5 freedoms training is your ability to be humble in that moment, to eat humble pie and be like, you're right, I screwed up, I'm sorry. And sometimes that could take a minute. Sometimes Shelly and I did a 5 freedoms training once, and I had to wait 3 days before I could go on to what my job was for the week. I had to sit with what she said because it was so blindsiding. You never know. You just never know how your words can affect somebody. In chiropractic, one of our principles, first of all, we talk a lot about time takes time. It's a principle of chiropractic. The other thing we say is that you just never know how far reaching something that you say or do could affect the lives of millions tomorrow. Something that you say today, I'm bastardizing the quote, right? So these are the pieces that here's an opportunity for you to tell me how I can better serve you in this relationship. It is everything. It's everything when it comes to protecting time, energy, money. What else, you guys? Okay, so this was the masterclass on June 1st. I can't believe it's June 1st. I'm turning 50 in a month. I can't believe that either. And the recording of this will be inside of the content inside of the Facebook group for the Joyful Practice Club.